My name's Adele Onyango, and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hey you, welcome to this episode of Legally Clueless. This is what's coming up.
They say urine is good because in their profession, a lot of the people they're meeting don't have. You take for granted the ability that you wake up every day and urinate. But I remember the doctor and my auntie was so happy. He's urinating. Like, okay. I found out I was pregnant in March. I was happy because I think I have wanted a baby. I always kind of wanted to be a mother at some point, and I knew that because I had wanted this for a long time, and I had experienced 2 miscarriages. So it was in my mind, this idea. I remember I joked when I met the first weekend I met him. I went and I told my friends, but that's the future father of my baby.
That is Rahab. We're jumping into part 1 of her story a little later in this episode. But first and foremost, thank you so much for rocking with the podcast. If you are an OG member, I've got nothing but love for you. If you're a newbie, welcome to the family. I truly appreciate you. And make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening because I think we almost have a show every day except Tuesday. Tuesday, we give you a chance to breathe. So Mondays, this episode goes out. Wednesdays, we have the midweek teas where I dive into topics that I think can help you on your healing journey or to better understand the world we're navigating. Our newsletter also goes out on Wednesdays, so make sure you subscribe. A link is in the show notes. Thursdays, we have For Mannerless Women. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we currently have a new show running on Fridays called Difference She Makes. I went on a journey across South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya to really tell the stories of women who get forgotten, but the work they're doing is allowing you and me to be as free as we are, to be as safe as we are, to live dignified lives. So if you want to know more about Difference She Makes, check out our YouTube channel. Subscribe. Before we jump into the story, I also have to say big shout out to all my Feb babies. February is finally here and I'm so happy. I turn 37 on the 5th of February and I'm just so excited because it actually hit me that I'm exactly who younger me wanted to grow up into. And how it hit me is when I was trying to figure out what my gifts to myself are going to be this year. And I realized I want my feet on the beach on my birthday because last year I decided I'm either going to be near a pool or a large body of water for my birthday. I also love the specific place I'm going to is one of my favorite places. And there's a guy who does bicycle tours. And I really love bicycle tours. I've done them with him 3-4 times. I could probably lead the tour now. So I'm super excited to be doing that. I'm taking myself to get my clinical breast exam and my pap smear as soon as my doctor comes back from leave. She normally goes on break a bit in February. So it wouldn't be on my birthday, but it is a birthday gift to myself. And I'm thinking of adding the HPV test as well in there because I've been... Okay, you know what? This is not in this episode. I'm also doing an ancestral session or cleanse with a healer from Lesotho, which is so excited. And then I'm doing a huge, big girly purchase for my business. Please light a candle for me and send good energy for me because it's something I've always wanted to do for my business, but it's scary. It's so scary. But you know what? So when I was looking at all of those gifts, I was just oh my God, I'm definitely the girly I wanted to grow up into. I wanted to pour love into myself, prioritize the things that make me happy, also do fun, quirky things, but be tethered to my spirituality and take care of my body. And I was just isn't that cool? So I'm very excited. I'm very excited for that. And if you want to give me a birthday gift that is not sending me money, Please go check out our new show, Difference She Makes. Watch the first two episodes. In fact, the most recent episode, we are in South Africa. So that's a fun episode to watch. And then, as a birthday gift, share the episode. I would really appreciate that. All right, let's jump into part one of Rahab's story. She's a stand up comedian, but she really talks about surviving grief, numbing pain. She has some incredible insights on that. And yeah, in this first part, she takes us to where it all began, like grief and addiction and how that all translates into comedy and sometimes how humor can be armor and a mask, yes, but also medicine. 100 African stories on Legally Clueless. Stories from Africa.
My name is Rahab Kihuha, and I'm a stand-up comedian. And one interesting thing about my journey into stand-up comedian, I started in 2019. I'll never forget how it started. At the time, I was really battling with addiction and grief. I had just lost my dad like 2 years before prior, 2017. And I had lost my uncle, like my dad's favorite brother. And it was a lot. And the way I was coping with my grief was I would drink. I would drink a lot and I would smoke. And I remember I had actually gone to a place somewhere in town and I was asking for something about karaoke, but they said they have comedians who meet there. At the time, stand-up comedy wasn't really like a thing like that. It was just like something kind of like a hobby people would do, you know. So I showed up the first time and I saw people and they were making people laugh. And it was like we there was barely any audience. Like the comedians themselves were the audience. Like the room was full of like 5, 10, less than, the comedians themselves would watch. So that's kind of just felt like goofing around. So I decided to get on stage. And I'll never forget the first joke that I ever told. I'm so proud of this joke to this day. So my name is Rahab, right? Growing up, I always loved comedy. Like, of course, the greats, Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock at the time. And now, of course, Kevin Hart. And I remember this was a time when I like to express myself I consumed a lot of American media and I liked, satire and sarcasm. Sarcasm is something like that I've always having, like a shield of armor. My personality, because of how I grew up with brothers, people would make fun of me. So I would like, dish them back, right? That's kind of how, or like be passive aggressive or, be witty, have always comebacks. So I noticed those are the skills that were required in comedy. So I remember the first joke I ever wrote, Rahab. So growing up, I didn't have the best relationship with my mother, mostly because she was just not emotionally present. She's not, we don't talk to each other like that. So I remember she was always working when I was growing up. So I didn't really have the best emotional relationship with her. Physically, she might have been there, but emotionally, I couldn't be free and share myself with her. So I remember I made this joke how my mother is very religious, right? Like she would always go to church. Sometimes I was actually angry at the Institute of Religion and Christianity for that because she was always somewhere at a BSF or at fellowship or something. You're just doing something for someone else, not for me. A Bible study groups. These like Bible study groups and fellowships and those kind of things. So, and she would force me to go to church growing up. Like I had no choice. I had to go to church even when I didn't feel like it. And it kind of, so I never understood the joke is, my name is Rahab. And for those of you who know your Bible stories, Rahab is, the words differ. Some say harlot, others say prostitute, any variation of lady of the night. At the time in the Bible, the story was, so I was like, why did she name me this name? You know how names are powerful, especially Bible names? because like my siblings really, like my sister's called Elizabeth, that's such a regal kind of queenly name. And I never understood, because like growing up, there was a lot of bad connotation. I read the Bible once and I said, what is this thing? Imagine like a 10, 11-year-old trying to understand what this thing is. And yeah, so I said, why did she name me after the most famous prostitute in the Bible? Because she really is the most famous prostitute in the Bible. And because of her story, it's one of transformation. Then now my surname is Kihuha. That's my Kikuyu name. So that means to blow. It's some variation of blow. So I remember I stood up. So I was like, I talked about how my mother would make me go to church. So every time I was to church, I was like, am I the prostitute that blows in church? And then people just laughed. Like, I was like, that's a good joke. Like I was just kind of just like saying things, right? And, every time different people of different nationalities that I've told people, as long as they speak English and understand that, that's just like, it's hilarious, right? Like this idea of and so that kind of was like my entryway, and I was like, oh, so that's the power of a joke. It's something that was kind of painful about, and I think this is something every good comedian does, where you transmute pain into laughter. Because so I turned like a story full of like shame about like myself and how I felt, having gone through the experiences I had gone through at the time, and I made it hilarious, and people laughed, and I laughed. And at the time, I remember I was really, really sad. I was really depressed, and I kept coming back, kept doing. Now, this was before COVID, kept going to those places, meeting those guys. And another reason I also love comedy is it was one of the few jobs or whatever that you could kind of have a drink even on stage. Even to this day, like just see people drinking alcohol. I don't think there's any other career where you can drink alcohol as you do your job like that, in that way. So I really, I like that. I was like, okay. And it was like freedom. It was freedom to be myself, like the parts of me that were never really accepted by anyone else. I could say raunchy stuff, I could curse, I could, it was like growing up in a Christian household. Obviously I was very repressed, right? Like there are certain things I couldn't do because of expectations or whatever. But now finally, when I was there, I was like, I could cuss and like say what I really think about this topic, and what I really think about that. And kind of like, now I started to learn the art form of writing comedy, because comedy is about, it's like a whole genre, and I just like the idea that I'm a student, like a lifelong student. I really enjoy making people laugh, and I love, as I want to kind of grow in the next few years, I just want to like embody all the different forms of physical comedy, stand-up comedy, in all its forms, because it's just something that I enjoy. I like being a jester, making people laugh, making funny faces, contorting my, if there was a way I could contort my body and then someone laughs, even if I'm embarrassing myself, I'm okay with it. Like when I was coming in the door, I was the other side, and then the secretary was looking at me like, what is she doing? I remember I saw you and her laugh, and it was embarrassing. Any other person would have been embarrassed. I was like, I'm already doing my job, like I love that. Like, so I don't finally in this thing, I didn't have shame when I do things that are embarrassing. Most people feel embarrassed when they do embarrassing things, but I love it. Like whether intentionally or unintentionally, whether consciously or subconsciously, I love being a joke, doing the joke, just kind of doing funny, because that was my role growing up in our household. My dad was the one who taught me how to be a storyteller. He was very boisterous. He would come and tell us stories about what happened and this. He would make us laugh. He had such a wonderful laugh. And I think I was really, really close with my dad growing up. We almost even shared a birthday. He was born on the 15th. I was born on the 17th of December. So I liked being around him. And you know how I also picked up good and bad things from him. So like that, like being loud, like telling stories, like even the element of addiction. That's something I suppose. Children do what you do. They don't really do what you say. They pick up your actions, whether subconsciously or, because my dad also really struggled with, drinking or smoking variation most, if not all of his life. So it was funny how I was dealing with the grief, just kind of picking up. You know how they say addiction has a genetic marker? So it was kind of like, it's like I picked that up, and I was just, I don't know, I liked who I was. And there was this like carefree. Up until that point, I had lived a very structured, rigid life for myself. Like there are certain things I would not allow myself to do. But there was a freedom that came with quote unquote being the bad girl. And, I expressed certain parts of myself that I had never kind of explored, even in terms of like my sexuality, in the sense of just like being in my 20s and going out and having fun and meeting people and, and dancing. And that was just like, I think that's the one thing that for me, alcohol gave was freedom. I could just be myself, say that thing that I wouldn't ordinarily say. And so that's in comedy, that was appreciated. Like, it was like, yeah, we like that. Keep doing that. And I was like, okay. So I kept coming. And as I laughed at myself and my life and my problems, slowly by slowly, it just stopped having my depression kind of, And then now came COVID, right? So I had to take a break, take a beat. Things were really hard during that year, 2020. And now for me, I have a background in international relations, USIU. I had studied that until my fourth year. But then I had to drop out because my mental health was just not okay. I had seen up until that point, I went to see a psychiatrist, and I remember they had diagnosed me with some condition. I'm not even going to name it. And now here's the problem. Like, I'm going to just talk about this in terms of psychiatry and mental health in Kenya. They don't really, because coming in, I came, my sister actually this time around, she was like, okay, we have to go see a psychiatrist. You're not okay. You've been struggling like this for years. And because I would call her crying, like, I don't know what's wrong, suicidal ideation, harming myself, like, up until that, but cutting myself and just really hating myself, wanting to die, thinking the worst of myself, a lot of self loathing. Now, this was before pre comedy. And I just didn't like who I was. I didn't feel good about myself. And I would have these moments where I'd be really happy, go get drunk. And then I would have months when I'd be isolated, not wanting to leave my room, you know. And I never understood what that was. So finally, my sister was like, okay, it's time to get help. Because you've been telling me you need something. So let's seek out a professional. And that's when I went to see a psychiatrist, and he gave me a diagnosis and started giving me medicine. Now, here's the problem. When someone is, addicted, let's say, to alcohol or marijuana or any kind of opiate or anything that, so for me, I never did the hard stuff. But at the same time, I understand that alcohol really is, and the fact that it's legal, it can really have adverse effects. So I would drink like all the time, like in the morning, the evening, just mostly I was either drunk on my way or nursing a hangover on my way to get another drink. Like those were kind of like my states that I operated in throughout the day. So like they didn't understand that you, first and foremost, I think people have to get sober. Like at least like the idea of rehab where you get sober so that you can see what's separate like the CPTSD, because there's a lot of complex PTSD, post-traumatic stress, that comes with being an addict, on your mind, on your body, not eating well, all those things. So they just gave me medicine, and yeah. So what I did, I continued to take the medicine and I continued to drink, which is just, now that I think about it, insane. And I just kind of continued in that state for some time, a long time, up until 2021. Now, up until this point, I had gotten into a relationship in 2019. Like, I remember how I met this person. I had a feeling like this is it, this is the one. And I kind of started changing. You know, when you fall in love and then you start to, I believe love is a mirror. You get to see yourself and how someone sees you, and you're like, I don't like this version of myself. And this person was really amazing in so many ways. And I remember thinking, what's wrong with you? Why do you want to be with me? Don't you know I'm not, And I realized, okay, so you have a problem in the way, even the way you see yourself or talk about yourself. So I started, up until that point, I started to, like, make strides to be a better version of myself. I would go in these periods where I would, like, stop, and then, like, because it's such a cunning and baffling disease, I would pick it up again. So 2021, I remember my brother was going to do he was going to do some tests. A cousin of ours needed, my mom's sister son. So my cousin, he needed a kidney. He had a disease called Alport syndrome that caused kidney failure, and he was really, really sick, like end stage 5. And I was shocked. Where's my brother? You want to give a kidney? That's insane. But then something happened and he wasn't viable. So my cousin called me and he's like, hey, do you maybe want to do the test? And I was looking at him like, the way I live my life, there's nothing about me that would help you. But I didn't want to say it. So I said, let me go to the doctor. Like, they will just tell me, you're not a match. Or, like, I thought there would be like some kind of beep, 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 something, some kind of alarm that would, too much toxicity here. I don't know. But it was not. And they did the test for like a series of months, and I was told I was a perfect match. I was shocked. You see, the way God, like the way I've lived my life, I really do believe in the existence of a higher power, God, something greater than myself, and the way things are aligned. So I decided, okay, I guess I'm doing this. I remember this was now September, October. So November is when it happened. November 20th. We went to a place here in Medihill. And the guy who did the transplant, you know how people go to India? The guy was an Indian who come here. So instead of you flying to India, the doctors come here. And he done like 3,000 transplants. And I remember my prayers, I was like, God, use me as an instrument of healing. And it was also like a way of like, okay, now you will definitely have to stop. And I remember I donated the kidney and it worked. And one interesting thing people don't know about people who have kidney failure, when you're going through dialysis, you can't pee. So I remember after I donated my kidney, and my auntie and the doctor was so happy that my cousin was peeing. And I was like, what is this? It was strange. Apparently, when your kidneys fail, you cannot produce urine. So one thing rhinologists, they call what? Yeah, renal failure. So I forget the term, but those doctors, yeah, they say urine is good because in their profession, a lot of the people they're meeting are just, they don't have, you take for granted the ability that you wake up every day and urinate. I know, I know it sounds so morbid and everything, but yeah, you just think, okay, this is normal. But I remember the doctor and my auntie was so happy. He's urinating. I'm like, okay. I remember at the time I had my catheter there, and they were looking and they were so happy. And then now I came to find out and learn all these things. And over the next few months, he was in the best health of his life. And for me, it was like a miracle, like living to be part of a miracle and being part of that kind of experience. I remember one of the what is the nurse or the doctor told me, you're doing an amazing thing. You're doing something like that even President Barack Obama has never done. And I thought they were just like, I think you're talking me up or trying to. But now I understand what they were saying, because I realize as I walk around and I live my life, I'm just kind of like a walking miracle. I'm just, because most people are like, so you just have one? People don't know this, but really, you really need, it's one. The other one is backup. You can comfortably survive. I eat everything, drink water, do everything that a normal person, exercise, do yoga, run, whatever, everything that swim, everything that a normal person does. So it doesn't really affect your life in that way, not really. And I don't take any kind of medication or anything like that. If anything, I believe I'm in the best health of my life, because now I have to be aware, like drinking water. That's something that, like, because I'm a living kidney donor, I drink like 2 to 3 liters of water every day, just normal. And it's good because water clears out, you have good skin, it clears out your cells and all those good things. So that's the kind of stuff I, started doing. And I was like, okay, so this is it, right? Like, I'm done with my life. And then 6 months later, I think it was about April, May, there's this thing where we talk about PPT, people, places, things. I went back to my old friends and I started drinking again. So in addiction, we call it a relapse. And it was really hopeless. Like, so now, first, but this time round, it wasn't as sad because I had comedy, right? So I would go, and then the scene started getting better. People started paying attention. People are paying tickets. We have places that we go every week. We perform. It's amazing. I'm making people. I'm making friends with people. I'm meeting new people. And for me, I'm an extrovert, so I collect social coins. Like, there's this thing about like extrovert versus introvert. So introverts, when you leave the house, you have your coins, let's say 10 or 100 coins, and every interaction you give out one, you give out one, you give out one. Extroverts, like for me, I can leave the house completely feeling down, and then the more I talk to people, interact with people, obviously like like people who are not negative people, good people, and I have high vibrational experiences or talks with people, I feel recharged, like re-energized, like a cup of coffee. So it's like I go, and for me now, being in that kind of space, you talk to people, even if you left the house I remember there's one time I was really, really sad, and I went to see a friend of mine perform. It's a really good comedian here in Nairobi. And I laughed and I felt so good. It was like instant recharge. It's like a battery, like your phone, you charge, plug in. Yeah, it's like how you jumpstart a car. And that's kind of how it feels for me in terms of like a comedy. And so now this idea that I get on stage and I say something, and sometimes it's never the thing that you think is funny that someone will laugh at, and then someone laughs. And then people come and tell you, thank you, or hey, you made my day. And for me, like the women would find me like in the bathrooms, odd places, and just like, you're amazing. And I'd be like, okay. And for me, I wouldn't even feel like I've done anything. Maybe I had a bad day, whatever, but something about it. And it was like a hobby. Like I was like, and in many ways, it was something that I was doing for my mental health, because they say laughter is the best medicine. And laughter is a form of healing. Because when someone comes and they laugh, even myself, when I go somewhere and I laugh, you kind of, that feeling of laughing, like massaging your internal organs in such a positive way, it's amazing. So to experience that and to be a practitioner of that is amazing. It's something I just really enjoy. Healing in all its forms really is something I love to do. So I fell in love with it, and I started doing it and I started doing it, and I continued. Now it was like 2022. I came back. I had taken a hiatus for like a few years, and then I came back and I did it. And then 2023, I was doing really well, like for myself in terms of growing to new heights and levels that I had never gotten to. And fast forward 2024, I found out I was pregnant in like March. I was happy because I think I have wanted a baby. I always kind of wanted to be a mother at some point, and I knew that. Yeah, so let me say my spouse. I like that one. Spouse slash partner. And I had a baby. So like I found out I was pregnant, and I was happy. I was very, very happy about this, because I had wanted this for a long time, and I had experienced two miscarriages. So it was like, yeah, in my mind, um this idea, I remember I joked when I met the first weekend I met him. I went and I told my friends, but that's the future father of my baby. And I remember my friend, she used a derogatory term. I'm not gonna say it, but she said, "Girl, you need some coffee. Someone get that girl a coffee." Let's say girl instead of the word I want to use. Someone get that girl a coffee, because I was like, I just felt it. You know how I don't know, spiritually, I just felt like this is the father of my child. And it happened like that, and I was happy. It was a transitionary place for us. And one thing now that happened that's very interesting, I kept doing comedy like throughout the first trimester. Sometimes it would be so bad, like, so maybe there's a lineup, open mic, and I'm like fourth place or fifth place, and the show is starting, and I'm in the bathroom just like really sick, like, you know, vomiting. And then by the time it's like second or third person, and then when I'm on stage, I'm like, hey, like, it was very like the element of performance. It kind of kept me, and I did it through the first trimester, second trimester. I remember my sister and I traveled to Kampala and Kigali, and I kept doing comedy, and I never was so serious about comedy like I was when I was pregnant. Like I went to so many open mics, so many, almost on a weekly. I was just there, just, and the more heavy I got, the more it was like a joke. So I started incorporating elements of my pregnancy into the comedy, like talking about myself. And by the time I was in my third trimester, I would be like, I'd get on stage. I was like, so let's address the elephant in the room. And then everyone would completely laugh. Or I'd be like, oh, you guys are lucky. You get a 2-for-1 special. And I just imagine at the time I didn't know my son was in there, just like, just like he'd come out and peep and look at everyone. Like, because they say in the third trimester, the kids can hear. And so mommy would speak, and then people would just laugh, and he'd be like, okay, I think he was part of the show. He's So it was quite wonderful. I think I realized that that's when I knew I think I'm in love with comedy, because I would never have done, if it was a regular job, I probably would have had a lot of sick days. Because you know that, especially like corporate, these jobs, I remember at some point in 2022, I had a job at a call center. I was really unhappy emotionally. I would just get up in the morning and feel, oh God, I'm so tired of this. Because it's like this idea of building someone else's dream and not doing something that you love. So one thing about me, interesting, when I was in Yosayu, I did a minor in Japanese. I can read and write and speak in Japanese. So there's this concept called ikigai. So ikigai means, there's like it's a Japanese term. So just to kind of like paint a picture, there's 4 circles, and there's the intersection in the middle. So it's what you love, what you can be paid for, what the world needs, and what you are good at. And right there in the middle of all those 4 circles, that is your ikigai. So I kind of stumbled on my ikigai, and that was comedy, because I was good at it. I realized I could make money from it. Now, when I say money, it wasn't I'm lucky that I live like in a middle class. My mother and my sister and they've supported me, because let's be honest, I don't think comedians are making enough money to be able to sustain themselves. It's really people. Most comedians have like side jobs or gigs, because it's not gotten to that place where you can just. Some people are able to do it, but it's really it's rare. So for me, it wasn't like money. Like I'm making money enough to just like I can make money. So it's like, let me try. Let me get better at this thing, because I like making. I'm still at that place where I'm trying to make the money, but the fact that I could just get paid in terms of like thousands for it, that for me was transformational. So that's that. So what I'm good at, what I can be paid for, what I love, and what the world needs. Come on, the world needs laughter and comedy, right? Like especially in these tough political times that we are in, I think it's just like, actually, it's not even it's not necessarily a Kenyan thing. You realize the crisis is global. Everywhere in the world, especially youth, people in their 20s and 30s, there's a lot of despair in terms of financial situation, living situation. There's a lot of economic disparity. So this idea that I would just kind of step out of the matrix, and that would mean maybe I would not participate in the corporate or trying to make my everyday living, but I was like, I want to do this. And then when you're pregnant, it really aligns what you want in life, because you're going to a traumatic experience where giving birth is something you could live or die. Like it's like there's like an era. So it really kind of, when people who've been through life near death experiences, they come out with some kind of clarity, because it's like you get to figure out, what would I do? What do I really want to do in life? And let me do that thing, and then let's just see what happens. So that's kind of where I decided I want to do this thing called comedy, like pursue it. Like I started when people would ask me what I do for a living, I'd be like, I'm a comedian.
Catch more African stories in the next episode of Legally Clueless. I hope you enjoyed part 1 of Rahab's story. Subscribe wherever you're listening to this, because part 2 is going to be out next week. One thing that really stayed with me from her is like sometimes we talk about healing as though it's so polished and neat. And it's step 1, then step 2, then step 3. It's not. It is a mess. Let me tell you. Healing is all over the place. Sometimes it's steps 1, step 2, then back to step 1, then 0, then jump to step 4, then it's, you know what I mean? Or it doesn't look like silence and like deep meditative moments. It looks like laughter and hanging out with people who feed you, Sometimes it looks like rebellion. Sometimes it looks like saying the things that you were never allowed to say out loud. And like, I really love the stories that we have on this show, because they show you like it's not linear. Healing is not linear. It's not neat. It's messy. It's all over the place. But one thing, it is across the board. It's necessary and so fulfilling, And I feel like we have also reminded me that like sometimes the journey of healing, survival comes first. And then after time, clarity, right? So you first find any way to stay alive, and then stay present, and then stay connected. And that doesn't mean you're being weak. Like, it's just like in that moment, that's what you need to do. And then afterwards comes the healing. But I want to know what you connected with in part 1 of Rahab's story. You can drop it in the comments wherever you're listening to this on. I love reading from you. Part 2 is going to be out next week, and trust me, it goes even deeper. Thank you so much for listening to this episode to the very end. And as I always say, this is not a habit. I truly believe it, that you have every single thing it takes to heal. That's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.